Chapter 51. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After receiving Ningchuan's new order, although the Thunder Fire Sword was somewhat reluctant, but seeing that Ningchuan had just injected a lot of domineering energy into it, it still rushed out from its original position in an instant. It began to act according to Ningchuan's instructions. Ningchuan handed the ivory in his hand to Nami and the others. Let them see whether to use this thing to carve something fun, or sell it. After the Thunder Fire Sword's shocking blow, it took a long time for the nearby sea surface to finally return to its previous calm, but with the sound of a series of rapid long swords breaking through the air, the calm sea surface was once again splashing, but this time the Thunder Fire Sword shuttled across the sea. It was to salvage the pirates who had escaped the disaster by chance one by one, send them one by one to Ningchuan and their ship, so that they can use them to pay off the debt with Garp later. Looking at the pirates who were constantly sent to the ship by Luo Huijian, Ningchuan was not careless at all. He immediately broke their limbs and tied them tightly with strong ropes. However, Ningchuan was a kind-hearted person after all. Before throwing them into the sea, he left a piece of driftwood for each of them so that they could float on the sea for a short time and not be drowned by the sea. In this way, even if there were devil fruit users hidden among these pirates. But once they were soaked in the sea, no fruit would work. As the waves continued to rise and fall, Drought Jack was pierced through the shoulder blade by the Thunder Fire Sword in a very embarrassing way, and floated out of the sea. It seems that the Thunder Fire Sword does not like this bulky guy very much, otherwise, he would not have hit him with a sword when he was pulled out of the sea. With a bang, Drought Jack, who had been soaking in the sea for a long time, fell heavily on the deck of Ningchuan's boat. The whole ship was swayed on the sea for a long time before it calmed down. This guy is really big. Nami and the other two looked at Jack, who was swaying the whole ship, and couldn't help but sigh. A lot of sea water flowed down Jack's body, revealing a lot of scars. This once arrogant one of the big bosses of the four emperors looked particularly weak at this moment. However, although Jack was seriously injured now, his eyes still flashed with fierce ferocity. He looked up at Ningchuan and the others on the ship. He didn't feel a trace of danger from them. This made Jack, who originally thought he would meet a strong opponent, stunned for a moment. Is it possible that there was someone else who attacked us just now? Did he see that I was going to attack these children? Thinking of this, Jack felt a burst of contempt in his heart. At the same time, a glimmer of hope ignited in his heart. If I take these kids down, what can I do to force the guy behind me to stop? Even get control of that terrible long sword. At this moment, Jack, who has always been out of his mind, actually plans to use this last chance to turn defeat into victory. Looking at the fierce light in Jack's mind, Ning Chuan couldn't help but sneer. With only one arm left, and his tusks and nose cut off, he still has this idea. This guy is so stupid. Just as Jack shook off the seawater from his body and prepared to use the remaining strength to launch a surprise attack, the Thunder Fire Sword seemed to have noticed his intention. The Thunder Fire Sword's sword body trembled slightly, and the tip of the sword was pointed at Jack at the first time. It was ready to attack at any time to protect Ning Chuan and the others. However, Ning Chuan reached out to stop the Thunder Fire Sword at this time. He walked forward slowly, his eyes deep, and there was a hint of disdain in his tone. What, do you still want to continue? Then I'll play with you. After saying that, Ning Chuan waved at the Thunder Fire Sword, signaling it to retreat. Watching the Thunder Fire Sword fly away, Jack's eyes began to wander between Ning Chuan and the Thunder Fire Sword behind him, with fear and greed intertwined in his heart. A little kid, just relying on a sword. How powerful can he be? Such a close distance is enough to take him down before the sword reacts. If I can get that sword, even if it costs an arm, it's worth it. Gradually, Jack's greed gradually prevailed. Jack simply thought that as long as he defeated this seemingly weak opponent, he could take the mysterious and powerful sword for himself. No matter what, fight. Just when Jack was about to launch an attack regardless of everything, the sneer at the corner of Ning Chuan's mouth became much more severe than before. He didn't say too many words, the whole body's momentum suddenly rose. The powerful armament Hawkeye instantly covered his fist. When Jack stood up and smashed his huge fist towards Ningchuan, Ningchuan's fist wrapped in armament Hawkeye directly hit Jack's fist. Ningchuan controlled some of the strength of this punch. After all, this guy will be useful next time. Just beat him up. Boom! After a deafening roar, Jack felt that his eyes went black. The power he was proud of was as fragile as paper under Ningchuan's punch. His fists were instantly smashed by Ningchuan in the collision. Then, the powerful force on Ningchuan's fist, like a torrent, flowed into his whole body along his arm. The bones in Jack's body made a continuous sound of shattering. The huge pain made him lose all resistance in an instant. Jack fell heavily on the deck, and his entire body was shattered by Ning Chuan's punch. The huge pain made it difficult for him to even breathe. At this moment, he could only lie there, unable to move, with horror in his eyes. Before he completely fainted, Jack left a last unwilling word. How could this kid be so strong? One day later, on a vast sea area in the East China Sea, Ning Chuan bought the information about the gathering location of the Navy from the messenger Seagull. After getting the location of the gathering of the Navy, he no longer hesitated and took Jack directly to the gathering place of the Navy. The four people drove the boat and sailed on the sea for a long time. Finally saw the place where a large number of warships gathered in the distance, just when they were about to go there directly. Suddenly, a Navy warship patrolling the periphery discovered their small boat. The captain of the patrol boat was a young beauty with the rank of colonel. She spotted the silhouette of Ningchuan's boat through the telescope, as well as Drought Jack tied to their boat. As a qualified naval colonel, Tina basically knows every wanted pirate. She recognized the big guy tied to Ningchuan's boat at a glance. It turned out to be a cadre of the beast pirates who appeared in the naval intelligence not long ago. Drought Jack, one of the three big bosses under the four emperors Kaido. After seeing this scene, Tina was stunned on the spot, with disbelief written all over her pretty face. Impossible. These four kids caught Drought Jack. Chapter 52. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Without any hesitation, Colonel Tina immediately sent a report to the command ship. Looking at the small boats that kept coming. As a Navy with combat experience, Tina was still highly vigilant at this time. She was afraid that this was a false illusion forged by Jack and other pirates. The purpose was to bring some unimaginable troubles to the Navy. To be on the safe side, she immediately ordered the warship to turn around and aim the guns at Ningchuan's ship, ordered all ships to prepare for battle and start moving forward quickly to intercept Ningchuan's boat. When the two ships gradually approached, Ningchuan held Jack's huge body and stood at the bow. His eyes were calm and a smile rose at the corner of his mouth. Obviously, he had recognized it. The one who came to intercept him was the Navy's military flower, Tina. As the distance shortened, Tina also saw the other person's face clearly. It was a young and handsome face with a slightly thin figure. It formed a very sharp contrast with the cargo he was carrying. I am Ningchuan, this is Drought Jack of the Beast's Pirates. I have subdued him. I want to see Vice Admiral Garp. Ningchuan's voice was clear and steady. He did not beat around the bush and directly stated his purpose. Hearing Ningchuan personally say that he was carrying Drought Jack, Tina showed an incredible look for a moment. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the scene in front of her was a little beyond her cognitive scope. Drought Jack. This is a capable general under the command of the four emperors Kaido, and now, he was actually captured by a seemingly ordinary young man, and looking at the injuries on the two people, you can understand that he didn't get any benefits during the fight with Ningchuan. He was completely beaten by Ningchuan. What made Tina even more difficult to understand was, this young man also claimed to meet Vice Admiral Garp. Could it be that he is the apprentice trained by Vice Admiral Garp? But why have I never heard him mention it? Although there were many questions in her mind, Tina was stunned for a moment. She quickly regained the calmness that a naval officer should have. You stopped the ship for a safety inspection first. I need to confirm the authenticity of what you said. Tina looked into Ningchuan's eyes and closely observed Ningchuan's every move. Make sure there will be no emergencies. Ningchuan had already prepared for Tina's request. After all, this is a critical moment, no mistakes can be made, so Ningchuan readily agreed and began to cooperate with the Navy's inspection procedures. Tina got on the boat of Ningchuan and the other four, when she saw that Ningchuan and his boat were full of children. She once again showed an expression of disbelief. There are no adults, but only children. They are too outrageous, right? Tina suppressed her shock in her heart. She started a routine inspection of Ningchuan and his boat. When she walked to the railing of the boat, when she looked at the ropes tied to the boat and the large number of pirates with familiar faces hanging on the ropes, at this time, Tina could no longer remain calm. You actually wiped out Jack's pirate group. Oh my God, As a naval colonel, she naturally knew the terrifying combat power of the Drought Jack group. Ordinary naval vice admirals are probably not the opponents of this ship of guys, and Ningchuan and his 4 children actually did it. At this moment, Tina's shock was beyond words. When she looked at Ningchuan and his people again, the shock in her eyes was hard to conceal. I will contact the top management immediately to report the situation here. How about you wait a moment? As Tina said this, she quickly picked up the Den Mushi and began to contact her superiors urgently. Even in the panic, the Den Mushi in his hand fell on the deck. Miss Tina, don't worry. Ning Chuan smiled and helped Tina pick up the Den Mushi, and comforted her at the same time. Seeing a child can stay calm at this time, but I was so nervous that I couldn't even hold the Den Mushi steadily. Tina's face suddenly flushed. No, it's too embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed in front of a few children. It's really too embarrassing. Waiting for the response from the Navy's top brass, Ning Chuan stood patiently at the bow, letting the sea breeze blow across his clothes. Looking at Ning Chuan standing at the bow, Tina unexpectedly found that the little guy's eyes revealed a maturity and calmness beyond his age. It seemed that everything was in his expectation. As expected. This made Tina's curiosity about Ningchuan increase greatly. She wanted to know more about Ningchuan now. When Colonel Tina's report was passed to Marshal Zhang Guo, it instantly caused an uproar among the senior officials. Marshal Zhang Guo, Akiji Kazan, Akainu Sakaski, these 3 heavyweights in the Navy, after hearing this news, almost at the same time, they raised their heads, and a glimmer of disbelief flashed in their eyes. What did you say? For children caught Drought Jack, there was obvious shock in Zhang Guo's voice. He rubbed his swollen temples, trying to make sure that he didn't mishear the information because of the busy affairs that caused his head to be confused. Akiji scratched his curly hair, and his expression became serious for the first time. This seems a bit exaggerated, right? Jack's strength is such that even the Vice Admiral of the Navy can hardly capture him. What are these kids like? Akainu took a big puff of his cigar and exhaled a stream of smoke. He has always been known for his toughness, and he couldn't help but reveal a bit of curiosity in his words at this moment. Interesting kid. Especially this guy named Ningchuan, who can achieve such achievements at such a young age. If he is willing to join the Navy, I will take him with me. Vice Admiral Garp has been drinking tea and eating senbei while listening to what the others said, until he heard Ningchuan's name from Akainu. He sat up from the recliner in surprise and couldn't help looking at Zhang Guo. Zhang Guo, what's the name of that kid you just mentioned? Zhang Guo glanced at Garp, snatched the senbei from his hand, and said dissatisfiedly. Garp. I asked you to participate in the operation, not to be lazy. This happened in the East China Sea under your jurisdiction. Why don't you even listen to the intelligence? That guy's name is Ningchuan. Listening to Sengoku's roar, Garp was not angry, but laughed out loud immediately. It turned out to be Ningchuan. His progress is really amazing. Now he is so strong that he even captured Kaido's cadre Drought Jack. Not bad, interesting. After hearing what Garp said, Sengoku and others on the side looked at him with doubtful eyes. Garp, do you know that kid? Sengoku pushed his eyes and asked in disbelief. Why don't you know him? That kid owes me a wanted order worth 3 billion yuan. Now he should be here to pay back the debt. Chapter 53. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Marshal Sengoku, 2 admirals Akainu and Akiji, and a series of high-ranking Navy officers, when they learned that Garp and Ningchuan seemed to have a very deep relationship, the expressions on their faces were quite strange. They were all shocked why Garp had never mentioned this. This is a boy with unlimited potential. At least he will be a great admiral in the future. Garp just missed this boy. At the same time, each of them began to feel regretful. Why didn't such a young man with unlimited potential join the Navy earlier and serve the Navy? Garp, you old man, why didn't you tell us about this earlier? This boy with unlimited potential should have been trained in the Navy early. Sengoku broke the silence first. There was a bit of anger and blame in his tone. Akainu's eyes also revealed a hint of dissatisfaction. For a talent like Ningchuan who started to fight pirates at such a young age, it was obviously difficult for him to accept that he did not enter the Navy system in time and become a naval officer. If such a little guy had come to the Navy earlier, his achievements would have been rated as an admiral now. Akiji Kazan seemed relatively calm. He had been on Garp's ship for so long. Naturally, he knew that Garp had his reasons for not recruiting Ningchuan into the Navy. He looked at Garp, thought for a moment, and began to help Garp out. Everyone, I guess Vice Admiral Garp should have invited Ningchuan. It should be that the kid might not be willing. Facing everyone's doubts, he heard that Akiji was willing to excuse himself. Garp's helpless old face rarely showed a trace of relief. He looked at everyone, spread his hands helplessly, and explained with a wry smile. I tried it a long time ago, but this kid is very stubborn and he is unwilling to join the Navy no matter what. He has his own dream to realize. As soon as he heard the word dream, everyone present focused their attention on Garp. After all, they knew it, those guys who were related to Garp, their dreams were naturally quite scary. For example, his son, Monkey D. Dragon. Ha ha ha. Why are you looking at me like that? Looking at Garp, who looked honest, Sengoku was silent for a long time and suddenly spoke. Garp, tell me the truth. Is this kid named Ningchuan's dream normal? After listening to Garp's explanation, the atmosphere in the conference room finally eased a little. Well, dreams don't have to be about doing scary things. Sengoku couldn't help wiping the sweat from his forehead. After all, if a guy who has been able to take down the 4 emperors since he was a child has the same dream as a rebel like Dragon to overthrow the world government, that's really scary. In that case, I will try to recruit Ningchuan myself. Then no matter how much it costs, we must win him over. Hearing Zhangguo's words, the senior officials in the conference room nodded in agreement. If Ningchuan can really be won over, then the Navy will have a very strong fighting force in the future. With Ningchuan's current achievements, no one will doubt that his strength will not be able to stand at the top of the world in the future. When Ningchuan received an invitation from the senior Navy officials and prepared to go to the Navy's temporary meeting room, in order to avoid attracting too much attention, he did not bring the eye-catching Thunder Fire sword. At the same time, for protection, he did not bring Nami and the others. Under Tina's personal leadership, Ningchuan soon arrived at the Navy's temporary meeting room. Marshal Zhangguo personally went out to greet Ningchuan in order to show the sincerity of the Navy. Hello Ningchuan, Vice Admiral Garp has introduced you to me a long time ago. You are a real hero. As soon as Zhangguo came up, he gave Ningchuan a set of greasy words. Ningchuan couldn't help but roll his eyes. After all, Ningchuan knew Garp's temper very well. With this old guy's temper, he probably wouldn't tell others about his own affairs, and Zhangguo knew that Garp and he knew each other, and he probably knew it not long ago. Looking at the strange expression on Garp's face, Ningchuan quickly confirmed his guess. After inviting Ningchuan to the conference room, Zhangguo no longer beat around the bush, and looked at Ningchuan and spoke seriously. Ningchuan, on behalf of the Navy Marshal, I formally invite you to join the Navy headquarters. As long as you are willing to come to the Navy, you will start as a Rear Admiral. You can join the elite forces of the Navy. Choose a Navy of 1,000 people. The Navy headquarters will not interfere too much in your actions, and you will be directly responsible to me, and you don't need to listen to anyone else's orders. Zhangguo kept offering conditions. These conditions were so generous that they far exceeded the treatment given to the 7 warlords by the world government. The other senior officials who heard this were shocked. They couldn't believe that Zhangguo was willing to spend so much money for Ningchuan. This is probably to train him as the future successor of the Navy. Who among the people present is not a smart person? Naturally, Zhangguo's intention can be seen. However, facing such generous conditions, Ningchuan's expression remained calm. He listened carefully, but did not give any answer. Ningchuan, what do you think? I can give you some time to think about it. You can give me an answer after this siege of Bubaki is over. Zhangguo has already lowered his shelf very low. It seems that he really likes Ningchuan, a talented guy. Marshal Zhangguo, your conditions are very generous. But I have no ambition to become a navy. Seeing that Ningchuan could reject Zhangguo so decisively, all the high-ranking Navy officers around, except Garp, were dumbfounded. Ha ha ha. Interesting boy. Your temper is exactly the same as mine. I knew you would choose this. At this time, Garp did not forget to add fuel to the fire. until Zhangguo's angry fist hit his head. Garp recovered from his excitement. He found that now seemed not to be a good time to joke. Boy, you just refused like that. Don't think about it again. Zhangguo held the last glimmer of hope and looked at Ning Chuan and said. Ning Chuan shook his head firmly again. Asshole. Become a navy, enforce justice, and fight against pirates all over the world. What's wrong with that? Why do you refuse? Is justice so unbearable in your heart, that looking at Ning Chuan's attitude at this time, Akainu, who has always had a hot temper, couldn't help but stand up directly and try to suppress Ning Chuan with his momentum. Facing the sudden rise of Akainu, Ning Chuan smiled slightly and thought to himself. As expected of Akainu, he is getting anxious now. If I tease him again, I'm afraid he will compete with me, and then the ability of the lava fruit should be available. Thinking of this, Ning Chuan no longer gave Akainu any face. Using words that directly hit his pain point, he hit. Is the so-called justice to be a dog for those powerful people of the celestial dragons? Chapter 54. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Akainu's face instantly turned livid under Ningchuan's ridicule. The lava power in his body surged like a volcanic eruption, causing the temperature in the entire temporary meeting room to rise sharply. Fortunately, he still controlled his anger. He did not let the lava in his body flood the entire temporary meeting room. All the high-ranking naval officers present felt an extremely depressing atmosphere at this moment. None of them could have expected that Ningchuan would dare to speak like this. The Navy is a dog for the world government, which is a frustrating fact that every high-ranking naval officer cannot get around. However, for face reasons, no one has ever dared to mention this matter in such an occasion. However, now, Ningchuan, this stinky brat, has brought this matter out in public. What he did was like using the sharpest knife to dig into everyone's hearts. Lies never hurt people, the truth is the fastest knife. Therefore, under Ningchuan's ridicule, except for Garp, the rest of the high-ranking departments of the Navy all had dark faces and looked at Ningchuan with unfriendly eyes. But at this moment, Garp, the heroic vice-admiral who enjoyed a high prestige in the Navy, unexpectedly, he laughed in front of everyone. Ha ha ha. This kid is really brave. He dared to tell the truth in front of us. Really, Garp's laughter broke everyone's silence. At this moment, all the high-ranking officers of the Navy turned their heads to look at Garp. Seeing the unfriendly eyes of others, Garp was stunned in place. Then an awkward smile appeared on his old face, and he scratched his head while speaking. Did I say something wrong again? Looking at Garp pretending to be stupid, Sengoku couldn't help but roar at him. Garp! If you don't speak, no one will treat you as a mute. Just like that, the silent scene just now was once again confused by Garp's disruption. However, when others were not prepared to delve into the matter, Akainu walked step by step to Ningchuan, looked down at him, and said. You dare to say such a thing? I'm afraid you are quite confident in your own strength, right? Then can you show me the strength of you who disdains to be a dog? If you can't satisfy me, I will be very angry. Akainu's voice was low and full of anger. It can be seen that Ningchuan's words just now really made him angry. After all, for Akainu, you can disagree with him. But if you dare to deny his justice, then it is equivalent to denying his life. How can he not be angry? Akainu, calm down. The voice of Marshal Sengoku suddenly sounded. He knew Akainu's temper very well, and he also understood that the situation at the moment needed to be controlled by himself. Children's words are not to be taken lightly. The overall situation is the most important. After hearing this, Akainu took a deep breath and barely suppressed the anger in his heart. However, he still looked at Ningchuan coldly, with anger gushing out of his eyes. Boy, I'll wait for you outside. I want to see if you are really qualified to say such things to me. After saying this, Akainu disappeared directly on the deck and came to the edge of the fleet, as if waiting for Ningchuan's arrival. After hearing Akainu's words, Ningchuan was not afraid, but his mouth corners slightly raised. He turned his head to look at Zhangguo and other senior naval officers and smiled. Sorry, everyone, I have to leave for a while. As soon as the voice fell, he chased in the direction where Akainu left. Seeing this, the other senior naval officers looked at each other and followed closely. They wanted to see what the real strength of this kid Ningchuan was. How would he behave when facing Akainu, the strongest force in the Navy? Looking at the direction where Ningchuan left, Zhongguo nudged Garp with his elbow and couldn't help but whispered. "Garp, did you expect Ningchuan to have such a reaction?" Garp didn't answer directly, but his expression revealed everything. Obviously, he was not surprised by Ningchuan's reaction. Ningchuan never plays by the rules. His mind is not so easy to guess. For example, this time, I'm afraid this kid is planning to attack Akainu again. The last time I met him, I accidentally fell into his trap. After hearing Garp's words, Zhongguo's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. "Are you planning to attack Akainu? Is there something he wants on Akainu?" Zhongguo thought for a long time, but couldn't guess what Ningchuan was going to do. In desperation, he had to chase after him like everyone else, ready to see the clash between Ningchuan and Akainu. Ningchuan and Akainu stood on the open sea far away from the fleet. The waves were surging around them, but the sea under their feet was unusually calm, as if it was shocked by the powerful aura of the two. At this time, boiling magma was surging on Akainu's body. He looked at Ningchuan's. There was a subtle recognition in his eyes. He was quite pleased that Ningchuan dared to come to fight. If Ningchuan was afraid of his status as a general and didn't even dare to come, then Akainu would look down on this kid who only knew how to take advantage of others. Looking at Ningchuan standing on the sea opposite him, the two of them had no extra words, and after a simple eye contact, the next moment, the powerful armament Hawkeye began to erupt from both of them at the same time. As the two figures flashed by, the sound of fists and feet colliding appeared in the ears of the onlookers. The offensive of the two people unfolded like a storm. Every punch and kick of Ningchuan carried extremely powerful force. It was not as powerful as a person of his age should be. Even Akainu felt a little pressure. There is no doubt that Ningchuan's armed color domineering level is naturally top-notch. Looking at this scene, Sengoku, Akiji, Garp and other high-ranking Navy officials were all shocked by the scene in front of them. They originally thought that although Ningchuan was strong, but in front of Akainu, the admiral of the Navy, it might not be able to hold on for too long. However, the facts were far beyond their expectations. Just in terms of domineering, Ningchuan's cultivation is already quite terrifying. Not only was he not suppressed by Akainu's offensive, but he became more and more courageous. Everyone can feel that Ningchuan's domineering can become stronger and stronger under such circumstances. This kid is really a monster. Garp's tone was filled with undisguised pride. I didn't expect that after being apart from him for a while, his Hawkeye cultivation had already reached this level. Although I knew that this kid was making rapid progress, I never thought that his progress would be so fast. At this time, what no one knew was, Ningchuan, who was in the process of a Hawkeye duel with Akainu, he kept asking the system to settle his armament Hawkeye cultivation results. When fighting against someone like Akainu, Ningchuan's armament Hawkeye was much faster than when he was practicing and settling his own results. Ningchuan enjoyed this process of improving his strength. However, as Ningchuan's armament Hawkeye became more and more powerful, Akainu, who was fighting against him, gradually felt that he could not hold on. After secretly cursing perverted kid, Akainu decided not to retain his strength. Without any hesitation, he directly activated the ability of his lava fruit. Boy, your Hawkeye is indeed very strong. In this regard, there are not many who can beat you. But even the strongest Hawkeye has its limits. And the natural system has no limits. Akainu's words fell. He was like a volcano erupting. Every punch he made was accompanied by a large amount of magma. Even the nearby sea surface was stained with a layer of hot lava red light. Seeing this scene, Ningchuan couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. Finally used the fruit. I've been waiting for this moment. Chapter 55. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A fierce look flashed in Akainu's eyes. At this moment, he no longer had any reservations. The power of the lava fruit surged out like a volcanic eruption. Hell dog. Akainu no longer held back, and directly used the moves he used when fighting the enemies on the sea. His fist was wrapped in hot magma, carrying destructive power, and rushed straight to Ningchuan's face. Even the strong men in the New World did not dare to take this attack easily. Is it the hell dog that knocked off half of Whitebeard's face? But lava has no effect on me. Facing the hell dog that Akainu hit, Ningchuan chose the simplest and most direct way to deal with it. He did not choose to dodge. but directly stretched out his fist towards the terrifying lava. With a fist covered with armed color domineering, he went straight to the hell dog. At this moment, time seemed to freeze. The eyes of all the onlookers were focused on this moment. Everyone who knew the horror of a Kainu and hell dog stared at the two people in the middle of the battlefield without blinking. They wanted to see, could Ningchuan survive this terrifying blow from a Kainu? Boom! That the two forces collided violently in mid-air. His lava-like fist with extremely high temperature was actually shattered by Ningchuan's punch. Looking at the lava splashing in the distance, blocking everyone's sight, seeing this scene, the onlookers were all shocked and unbelievable. To shatter the lava arm, even Ningchuan would have to bear a huge price. It's a pity, although this kid is extremely fierce, this is magma after all. Even if Ningchuan doesn't die, he will at least be seriously injured. The lava fruit is too powerful, and ordinary people can't withstand the power of this lava. This kid's ability is more than that. Just when the Navy watching were singing bad news about Ningchuan. Garp's face showed a smile that could not be concealed. Zhangguo, who was standing by, originally thought that Ningchuan might be seriously injured by this attack, but looking at Garp's appearance, he began to hesitate in his heart. Could it be that Ningchuan really has a way to withstand the terrifying high temperature of the lava? That just when Zhangguo was extremely confused, the lava in the sky began to sink to the bottom of the sea. Ningchuan and Akainu, who were surrounded by lava, gradually revealed their figures. However, when the two of them appeared, something that shocked everyone happened. Ningchuan's body was still standing there very steadily, as solid as a rock. It seemed that Akainu's hell dog did not cause him any substantial damage. On the other hand, Akainu looked at his shattered lava arm with a gloomy face. His face was full of disbelief. What kind of monster are you? Why can you withstand the terrifying high temperature of my lava? After hearing what Akainu said, Ningchuan couldn't help but smile. Lava is something that you will naturally develop resistance to as long as you come into contact with it more. However, I happened to come into contact with these things not long ago. Therefore, your lava fruit is no longer a big threat to me. Looking at the relaxed and confident expression on Ningchuan's face, a huge wave of emotions was set off in Akainu's heart. You already have resistance to lava. What a joke. How can a human body be resistant to something like lava? Although Akainu found it hard to believe what he heard, but the living example in front of him told him that what Ningchuan said seemed to be true. Since the Hades dog can't take you down, then try this trick. Dog bites red lotus. Akainu's anger reached its peak, and he decided not to hold back and used his strongest trick. Under his control, a large amount of extremely hot lava seemed to have gained life. Gathered together, it turned into a ferocious hellhound, carrying a destructive breath that seemed to come from hell. In this attack, Akainu almost used all his strength. The power of the lava fruit was also used to the extreme by him at this moment. The temperature of the lava began to become unprecedentedly high at this moment. The magma that seemed to be able to melt everything continued to boil out of Akainu's body. Facing this attack that was enough to scare most strong men, there was no fear in Ningchuan's eyes, but a strange smile flashed across his eyes. This time, he didn't even stretch out his fist, he stood directly in place, as if waiting for Akainu's attack to come. Boom! When the lava turned into the ground when the hell dog smashed towards Ningchuan's position, Ningchuan immediately used his observation Hawkeye to the limit. In his mind, he began to quickly recall the subtle changes in Akainu's body when he used the lava fruit that he had observed before. When the dog bite red lotus fell on him, a large amount of extremely hot lava instantly surrounded Ningchuan. At this moment, Ningchuan, who had been standing there, finally moved. But this time, he moved not his body, but his lips. System, start settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully feeling the power of the lava fruit for 10 seconds and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start practicing settlement now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the return of cultivation for 10,000 seconds after feeling the power of the lava fruit. The host's understanding of the power of the lava fruit has improved. After gaining a deep understanding of the rules of the operation of the lava fruit in Akainu's body, Ning Chuan did not hesitate at all. On the basis of his understanding of the lava fruit, he continued to speak in his mind. System, continue to settle. Congratulations to the host for successfully feeling the power of the lava fruit for 20 seconds and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. When Ning Chuan had almost mastered every detail of the lava fruit, Ning Chuan no longer hesitated and began to try to make his body give birth to the power of the lava fruit. As Ning Chuan's heart moved, the next moment, some hot lava began to flow out of his fingertips. Success! Ning Chuan was delighted. Then, he continued to speak in his mind. System, continue to settle. Congratulations to the host for successfully using the power of the lava fruit for 5 seconds and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start practicing and settling now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the 50,000 seconds return of cultivation for feeling the power of the lava fruit. The host has already mastered the power of the lava fruit. Wait until this time to try the lava fruit and the cultivation will be returned. Ning Chuan smiled again. Next, let's try elementalization. Chapter 56. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the system informed Ningchuan that he could use the power of the lava fruit, Ningchuan was ready to let his body try to transform into an element, become a part of the lava and merge with the lava. As the idea of transforming into an element appeared in Ningchuan's mind, his body began to change. He only felt an unprecedented power emerging from his body. At this moment, he seemed to have established some kind of mysterious connection with the lava. His skin, muscles, and even bones began to glow with the color of lava. At this moment, his body began to have lava constantly bubbling out like a kainu. Gradually, he was completely wrapped in lava. At this moment, Ningchuan seemed to have become the incarnation of lava. His current form of existence seemed to no longer be a simple human form, rather, it was like a life form coexisting with lava. This change made a kainu, who had eaten the lava fruit, feel a little shocked and puzzled at this moment. This kid. How is it possible? A look of disbelief flashed across Akainu's eyes. He had never thought that someone could imitate the power of the lava fruit. No, this shouldn't be imitation. To be precise, it is to make the body elementalize just like himself. Become like lava. This scene that happened to Ningchuan has exceeded Akainu's understanding. He has served in the navy for so many years, and his understanding of devil fruits is far beyond that of ordinary people. But he has never heard of it. The power of a devil fruit can actually be used by a second person. This made him simply unable to believe what he saw with his own eyes. If he can also use the lava fruit, then what am I, the person who ate the fruit? Thinking of this, Akainu was a little horrified. However, this scene is now happening in the magma. Except for him and Ningchuan, no one else has seen it. Even if Akainu wants to find someone to discuss it, I'm afraid he can't find it. Damn it! If this kid doesn't want to use the power of the lava fruit next. Even if I tell this, I'm afraid no one will believe it. Looking at Ningchuan, who has completely turned into a part of the magma coming out of his body, Akainu is a little helpless at this time. Because he found something that made him extremely helpless. That is, he can no longer tell which ones are the lava coming out of his body, which ones are Ningchuan. As time passed by, Ningchuan's state of being completely wrapped in lava at this time has caused concern among the senior naval officers present. They looked at the mass of lava that was constantly churning on the sea. A trace of uneasiness emerged in their hearts. The original duel has now become a little unpredictable, since Ningchuan was surrounded by a large amount of lava. It has been a long time since he showed any signs of struggling or fighting back. This made all the senior naval officers watching start to worry. Has this kid Ningchuan met with an accident? At this moment, Zhang frowned, and he was hesitant in his heart, wondering whether he should speak up to stop the duel at this time. He was worried about Ningchuan's safety, fearing that he would suffer irreversible damage under this terrifying magma force. This is a kid with unlimited potential and a sense of justice. Even if he doesn't join the navy in the future, then he can cause a big blow to the pirates on the sea and bring a lot of help to the navy. Now, if he is accidentally crippled here, then it will be a huge loss to the whole world. However, he is also afraid that because of his intervention, Ningchuan will lose an opportunity to grow. A battle between top combat forces like the Admiral, for a young man like Ningchuan, it is a great opportunity to learn combat experience. If he intervenes in their battle like this and makes Ningchuan miss some opportunities for improvement, then he will regret it. Zhang Guo's heart is in a great contradiction at this moment. Garp, who was standing beside him, also showed a rare look of worry at this moment, although he looked careless and didn't seem to care about Ningchuan's affairs, but now, it can be clearly seen from his expression that he is still very worried about Ningchuan. Garp knew Ningchuan's potential very well and thought that he might not necessarily lose to Akainu, but he also understood, no matter who it is, even if it is himself. When facing the absolute power of Akainu's lava fruit, it is possible that he will be unable to cope with it. This kid. What a big deal. Even if it's steel, it should be refined after being in the lava for such a long time. That there was a hint of helplessness in Garp's tone. The surrounding high-ranking Navy officers, including Akiji and those vice-admirals, also fell into silence. In their hearts, they admired Ningchuan and were worried about Ningchuan's current situation. At the same time, when everyone was paying attention to Ningchuan's life and death, Ningchuan swam in the sea of lava that emerged from Akainu's body. It was the first time for him to element his body, and he felt very wonderful about this feeling. He transformed into a lava element and swam in the sea of lava. Every drop of lava seemed to be invaded and controlled by Ningchuan, turning into a part of himself. While feeling this wonderful feeling, Ningchuan also did not forget to continue to improve his control over the ability of the lava fruit. System, start the settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully using the ability of the lava fruit for 5 minutes and activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start practicing and settling now. Settlement successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully using the ability of the lava fruit to feel the 50,000 minutes of cultivation returned. The host's lava fruit ability has been greatly improved. System, continue to settle. As the system returns the cultivation again and again, Ningchuan found that his control over the lava began to become stronger and stronger. Looking at the lava surrounding his body, Ningchuan suddenly had an interesting idea in his mind. He wanted to control the lava and let it flow back into Akainu's body, do it as soon as he said it. Under Ningchuan's control, the sea of lava under him actually began to flow back into Akainu's body. The senior naval officials who were watching were all relieved when they saw this scene. They knew that Akainu began to recycle the lava, which seemed to mean that this battle was about to end. However, it seemed that Akainu had won. However, what no one could have guessed was, the lava backflow was not Akainu's intention. Akainu was frightened by the backflow of lava at this time. What's going on? How can these lava flow back into my body? I didn't control them. Could it be that without any hesitation, Akainu quickly cut off the connection with the lava? He was afraid that Ningchuan would use the lava to impose unimaginable means on him. Ningchuan's sudden move really made him feel an unprecedented threat. If there weren't too many high-ranking Navy officers watching, Akainu didn't want to show any weakness in front of them. Otherwise, he would have asked Ningchuan with a shocked face. What the hell happened? Are these lava flowing back into my body controlled by you, little brat? Chapter 57. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the lava on the sea surface gradually sank into the seabed and disappeared, the duel between Ningchuan and Akainu finally came to an end. There was silence on the battlefield. The sea finally returned to calm. All the onlookers could not tell exactly who the winner of this duel was. At this time, Akainu's face was uncertain. It was a complex interweaving of emotions. Both shock at Ningchuan's special ability and unwillingness to win. Akainu's eyes revealed a rare solemnity. This is almost impossible to see at ordinary times, and Ningchuan, his expression at this time seemed particularly relaxed. It was as if the fight between the two just now was just an ordinary training for him. Looking at Akainu with a strange face and Ningchuan who was extremely calm, Akiji suddenly had an urge to test Ningchuan's strength. He wanted to know what was so weird about this kid Ningchuan, a guy who could give Akainu, who was giving him a headache, such a weird look. However, after looking at the shocked expressions on the faces of the people around him, Akiji knew that now was not a good time to fight Ningchuan again, so, Akiji decided to wait until the evening to find a suitable opportunity to meet Ningchuan again. After successfully mastering the ability of the lava fruit, Ningchuan's eyes turned to Akiji and Sengoku involuntarily. these two strongest fighters in the Navy both have powerful fruit abilities. Frozen fruit and the Buddha form of the human fruit. Akiji's Ice Age and Sengoku's super strong combat power after transforming into a golden Buddha, Ningchuan was extremely envious of these two abilities. However, Ningchuan knew, it seems that he can't get such an ability today. Today, a general has already taken action, but he didn't take him down. If another admiral or the admiral of the Navy comes to fight, and they still can't take him down, then the Navy's face will really be lost. In order to prevent such a thing from happening, Zhangguo will never let anyone fight Ning Chuan again. Pa pa pa. Yes, it's true that heroes come from youth. There are not many people in the whole sea who can hold on for so long in Akainu's hands and remain intact. This battle really opened our eyes. Zhangguo's voice suddenly rang out at this time. Ning Chuan and Akainu could hear the meaning of Zhangguo's words, so they both stopped fighting tacitly and had no intention of fighting again. However, Akainu looked at Ning Chuan with a very strange look at this time. He still couldn't figure out how Ning Chuan was able to use the power of the lava fruit. Therefore, Akainu decided, if he had the opportunity to meet Ning Chuan alone, he must figure out this problem. Friend Ning Chuan. You must be a little tired after the battle just now, right? Why don't we go back to the meeting room to rest? Let's discuss the next round of capturing Buggy the Clown. Hearing Zhangguo's sincere invitation, Ningchuan smiled and shook his head, saying seriously. Marshal Zhangguo. This should be considered a secret of your Navy. I, an outsider, will not participate. Besides, I just experienced a big battle. I have to go back and rest for a while. If you need help next, you can tell me, I will do my best to help you. Seeing Ningchuan say this, Zhangguo had to let Ningchuan go back temporarily. When Ningchuan left, Zhangguo couldn't help sighing in his heart. It's really hard to let this good seedling of the Navy go just like that. After Ningchuan left, a group of high-ranking naval officials returned to the temporary meeting room. Sitting in the middle, Zhangguo was keenly aware of the strange look on Akainu's face that was difficult to conceal. He knew that Akainu was not a person who would easily show his emotions, especially in this situation. After a simple meeting and explaining the next work to be done, the meeting was disbanded. When everyone dispersed and only a few of their senior executives were left in the room, Zhangguo took the initiative to come to Akainu's side and spoke with a hint of curiosity. Akainu, what happened? Why do you look so ugly? Akainu hesitated when he heard this. At this time, he couldn't help but recall the various strange phenomena when he just fought with Ningchuan, especially the ability of the lava fruit that Ningchuan suddenly showed. The control of lava was almost comparable to the lava ability he controlled after eating the lava fruit. However, Akainu knew it well. Such things, if there is no solid evidence, it is difficult to convince others. But now, after all, it was Zhangguo who asked him. After hesitating for a while, he still expressed his doubts. Marshal, Akainu's voice was very solemn. Ningchuan seems to have some understanding of the power of the lava fruit, and can even imitate and use part of it. Hearing this, Zhangguo frowned slightly, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Ningchuan can use the power of the lava fruit? Are you sure you didn't see it wrong? Zhangguo's tone was a little uncertain. After all, such a thing is too shocking. One of the common senses on the sea is that the ability of a devil fruit can only be mastered by one person, and it is unique. Unless this person dies, this ability will always be on one person and cannot be transferred. And now, Akainu said that Ningchuan can use his lava fruit ability. This really overturned his cognition. Akainu nodded, but then shook his head. Not exactly the same, but I can be sure that he has mastered part of the power of the lava fruit. As for how he did it, I don't know. Seeing that Akainu didn't seem to be joking, Sengoku pondered for a moment, looking at Akiji and Garp around him and said seriously. Everyone, let's not disclose this matter to the public for the time being. This may be related to the reason why Ningchuan is so powerful. Hearing this, several people present nodded. Only Akiji had a different thought in his heart. Can you imitate the fruit ability of others? Then I have to meet this kid even more. After Ningchuan returned to the ship, he told Nami and the other three about the process of his battle with Akainu. Listening to Ningchuan's thrilling process, Nami, Nokiko, and Kuina were all worried about him. At the same time, they all stepped forward, lifted Ningchuan's clothes and carefully checked him to see if he was injured. It was not until the three of them checked Ningchuan thoroughly and found that he was not injured that they finally put their minds at ease. In this way, Ningchuan and Nami stayed on the boat. The four of them played mahjong invented by Ningchuan together, until Nami and the others fell asleep at night. Ningchuan seemed to sense something and suddenly sat up from his bed. He flew out of the cabin and came to the deck, until he saw the bicycle parked on the sea. Ningchuan smiled and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that Admiral Aokiji would be very interested in an ordinary kid like me." Chapter 58. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You can fight a general to a draw at such a young age. I think anyone would be curious. Aokiji smiled, looked up at Ningchuan above his head and continued. However, you can actually guess the purpose of my coming here. You are quite interesting. I like it. Ningchuan did not show any expression for Aokiji's praise, still smiling. Did you come to me just for this? Nothing else. In response to Ningchuan's question, Aokiji was stunned for a moment, and then a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. Good guy. You kid, you can't even guess this, right? Marshal Sengoku will invite you to participate in the operation to capture Buggy the Clown tomorrow. If you are interested, follow the warship tomorrow. After hearing what he wanted to hear from Aokiji, the smile on Ningchuan's face became even stronger, as if he had guessed that this would happen a long time ago. Looking at the confident smile on Ningchuan's face, Aokiji understood that Ningchuan was really not a simple guy. He could even guess this matter. But it was not surprising to think about it. After all, the Navy's big formation this time was just for Buggy. After thinking of this, Aokiji also smiled. He extended his hand to Ningchuan and invited him. How about we go over there to have a chat? I'm very curious about you now. Looking at Aokiji's fighting spirit, Ningchuan asked him a question that surprised him. By the way, I have a question now, that is, how much is the bounty for Buggy who killed the celestial dragons? Hearing Ningchuan's words, Aokiji was obviously stunned, and then a smile appeared on his face, thinking. He is really a kid, still caring about the bounty. Does he want to snatch Buggy in exchange for the bounty while surrounded by the Navy? Aokiji thought for a moment and spoke directly. The clown Buggy is so bold that he actually killed the celestial dragon. Plus, he seems to have a powerful ability of the split fruit, which seems to be able to tear everything close to him into pieces. Taking into account his danger, the world government has set a bounty for him. 3.5 billion baileys. Ningchuan was not surprised to hear the amount of the bounty. It is not much different from what he guessed at the beginning. Yes, more than 3 billion, it is enough to pay off Garp. But, with Buggy's luck, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to catch him this time. Ningchuan thought for a moment and smiled slightly. For this bounty criminal he created, he didn't feel guilty at all. Shall we go over there and have some discussion? Seeing that Ningchuan seemed to have no other questions, Aokiji invited him again. Ningchuan nodded, flew out directly, and followed behind Aokiji's bicycle. They stopped only when they were far enough away from where the fleet was gathering. I think this place is great. What about you? Aokiji froze his bicycle on the sea and looked at Ningchuan with a smile. Ningchuan spread his hands. He didn't care where he fought, as long as it didn't affect Nami and the others' rest. It would be fine. Aokiji's eyes fell on Ningchuan, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Ningchuan, the boy who could fight with his mortal enemy Akainu, was not inferior to him. He was really looking forward to it more than ever before. Ningchuan, I heard from Akainu that you used the power of the lava fruit in the duel with him. So, are you able to use the power of the lava fruit now? Ningchuan smiled when he heard this. He didn't hide it and nodded directly. After all, it was only a matter of time before his ability was exposed. He didn't have the idea of hiding his ability. Seeing Ningchuan admit it directly and generously, Aokiji raised his eyebrows slightly, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect Ningchuan to admit it so frankly. It seems that he is quite confident in his ability. So, Aokiji paused and continued. No wonder Vice Admiral Garp said you might be planning something. I see. If that's the case, will you be able to master the power of my ice fruit after fighting with me next time? I'm curious, what fruit did you eat? Ning Chuan smiled slightly after hearing this. but did not directly answer Akiji's question. If you don't want to answer, forget it. Everyone has their own secrets. Let's start sparring. Akiji looked at Ningchuan's position and smiled, then he just pressed his palm on the seat, before Ningchuan could react to what kind of moves he was going to use. Suddenly, Akiji whispered. Ice Age. Akiji didn't hesitate or carelessly, he used his signature moves right away. The next moment, the breath of the Ice Age instantly spread out with him as the center, a terrifying cold current instantly swept across the entire sea. A thick layer of ice quickly formed on the turbulent sea surface, trapping Ningchuan in it. Akiji's move was really beyond Ningchuan's expectations. He started with a big move right away, disrupting Ningchuan's plan to slowly compete. However, Ningchuan was not confused by Akiji's immediate use of the Ice Age. Instead, he immediately used his own armament Hawkeye to defend himself. At the moment when he was frozen into an ice sculpture, he only saw the corners of his mouth move slightly, and whispered softly. System, start the settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully using Hawkeye to resist freezing for 10 seconds, activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start the cultivation settlement now. Successful settlement. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the return of cultivation for using Hawkeye to resist freezing for 100,000 seconds. The host's resistance to freezing has been greatly improved. System, continue to settle. Congratulations to the host for successfully using Hawkeye to resist freezing. System, continue to settle. As Ningchuan began to settle the resistance to freezing through the system again and again, soon after, Ningchuan felt that his body had adapted to the extremely low temperature of the ice layer. It was exactly the same as in an ordinary environment. Now, the side effects of the freezing ability are no longer effective for Ningchuan. Ningchuan, who has gained the ability to be immune to freezing, now he is thinking about the ability of the freezing fruit again. System, start calculating the freezing fruit I observed. Congratulations to the host for successfully observing the freezing fruit ability for 8 seconds, activating the 10,000 times return system for cultivation. Start practicing now. Solution successful. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the 80,000 second cultivation return for observing the freezing fruit ability. The host's understanding of the ability of the freezing fruit has improved. Chapter 59. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Akiji thought he had used the Ice Age to freeze Ningchuan there in an instant. He originally thought that this would prevent Ningchuan from stealing his ability to freeze fruit. However, what Akiji had never expected was that Ningchuan's ability was far beyond his imagination. At this time, Ningchuan was constantly performing system settlements again and again in the layers of ice, until he heard the words, "You have greatly improved your ability to freeze fruit." From the system, Ningchuan finally raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Ningchuan's state of mind became unusually calm. He was silently feeling the power of freezing. Gradually, he seemed to merge with this frozen world. Elementalization. Ningchuan just silently said one sentence. The next moment, Ningchuan's figure instantly disappeared from the frozen position, and merged with these countless layers of ice. Where is this kid? Feeling Ningchuan suddenly disappear from his power, Akiji's eyes widened instantly as if he had seen a ghost. He could not imagine how Ningchuan could instantly disappear from his sight. If Ningchuan used his domineering power to directly break the ice layer, then Akiji would not be so surprised. And now, Ningchuan disappeared out of thin air in front of him under the power of his ice fruit. He really couldn't figure it out no matter what. Just as Akiji was stunned, he suddenly felt a sense of danger coming from the ice layer around him. No way. This kid, could it be? Akiji hadn't finished his words. The next moment, a voice that made him very familiar rang in his ears. Ice Age. When he heard these words, Akiji instantly felt something was wrong. However, before he could dodge, a stronger freezing force came towards Akiji like a torrent. He was frozen in the ice. Ningchuan slowly walked out of the ice and stood in front of him. General Akiji. What do you think of my ice fruit ability? Ningchuan stared at the frozen position of Akiji with his eyes fixed, and said with a smile on his face. Crack. A crisp sound came out. Akiji, who was a little embarrassed, broke through the ice and walked out of it with a shocked face. You kid. Your control of the ice fruit ability is not inferior to mine. You just came here through elementalization, right? Listening to Akiji's extremely shocked words, Ningchuan did not answer, but just smiled and nodded. Good boy. Your ability is really scary. You can master my ice fruit ability in such a short time, that at this moment, Akiji felt that his three views were overturned. He has used the ice fruit ability for so many years, in just a few dozen minutes, it was successfully mastered by a child and reached a level similar to his own. He felt that he had lived in vain for decades. Since this kid can master my ice fruit ability in such a short time, then I'm afraid his control of Akainu's lava fruit ability is not inferior to his. In this case, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to win against him. Thinking of this, Akiji felt that there was no need to continue this fight. Ningchuan has the ability of two fruits, and he is also very proficient in his ice fruit ability. If the fight continues, I'm afraid he will be the only loser. At this moment, Akiji seemed to understand, why did Akainu show such a strange expression during the daytime today? What kind of devil fruit did this kid eat? He can master two top natural fruit abilities in one day. Looking at Ningchuan, who has been standing there with a smile on his face, Akiji once again felt a little puzzled. However, no one can answer this puzzle. General Akiji, do you still want to fight? Looking at the eager expression on Ningchuan's face, Akiji hesitated for a moment and finally shook his head. No more fighting, you kid is too bad, you can actually steal other people's fruit abilities. Without the ice fruit as my advantage, it's hard to beat you. Akiji is much more generous than Akainu. He directly admitted that he couldn't beat Ningchuan. However, it may be because there are no spectators that he can do it so coolly. Hearing Akiji's words, Ningchuan spread his hands helplessly. Well, there is no fight again, so boring. Akiji rolled his eyes and thought. What do you mean there is no fight? I beat two admirals in one day and stole their abilities. Isn't that enough? Do you want to beat the admiral? If Ningchuan knew what Akiji was thinking at this time, he would definitely smile and nod seriously. After all, the great Buddha form of the human fruit of the Warring States period is also an ability that Ningchuan wants very much. Ahem. You kid, you're such a headache. If you really want to continue fighting, then follow our Navy's fleet tomorrow. Tomorrow the Navy will round up Buggy the Clown. As far as I know, many of the New World 4 Emperor's men are here this time. You should have a chance to take action then. After saying this information, Akiji got on his bicycle without looking back. Go back to where you came from. Looking at Akiji's back as he left, Ningchuan smiled. The New World 4 Emperor's men. It seems a bit boring. If the 4 emperors themselves come, it will be much more interesting. Time passed quickly, in the blink of an eye. It was the next morning. Gently pushed away the two Nami sisters who were hugging him. After wiping the saliva from their mouths while sleeping, Ningchuan walked out of his room. Looking at Kuina, who had already come to the deck to practice swordplay, Ningchuan had a smile on his face. He walked to Kuina's side, held her sword-holding finger and pointed out a few places where she had not practiced well enough. This made the shy Kuina blush a little, just when Ningchuan was about to do a set of Kunquan fitness exercises next to Kuina. Suddenly, Tina's patrol boat came to Ningchuan's boat at this time. Wearing a navy uniform, Tina looked very heroic. Looking at the two people who got up early on Ningchuan's boat, she couldn't help but show a little surprise on her face. Then she couldn't help but laugh in her heart. No wonder Ningchuan is so strong. Come out to practice so early, this perseverance is better than other peers. But to be honest, this boy is pretty good looking. If he were older, with his strength and looks, I'm afraid he would seduce many girls. While Tina was watching Ningchuan also found her. The two of them stared at each other for a moment. For some reason, Tina suddenly felt her face turn red. Tina! What are you thinking about? He's just a child. Don't forget your mission this time. Tina slapped herself hard on the face to recover from the strange state. She looked at Ningchuan, who was doing a strange set of boxing, and said loudly. Captain Ningchuan, the Navy's operation to capture Buggy is about to begin. Marshal Zhanggue asked me to guide you. Chapter 60. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss Tina, thank you. If possible, can you come to our ship and help us get off the boat? Our driver is still in a dream. Thinking that the two sisters Nami who were in charge of driving the boat were still asleep, it was not good to disturb them. He also had to do his morning Kunquan exercise. Ningchuan had no choice but to let Tina help him with this little favor. After all, a fragrant navy flower came to help him drive the boat. This is really a scene that makes the Marines envious. Captain Ningchuan, do you need help? Tina didn't think about it, and directly called her guards and gave them the task. Then she quickly came to the bow, and landed steadily on Ningchuan's boat in a few steps. Watching Tina fly directly to his own ship, Ningchuan directly extended his hand to Tina to express his gratitude. Then I'll trouble Miss Tina. Tina's hands are very smooth, without any roughness caused by the strong training content of the Navy. It seems that she is still very concerned about her maintenance. No trouble, not at all. It's my honor to help Captain Ningchuan drive the boat. Since Tina knew yesterday that Ningchuan had fought Admiral Akainu to a draw, she unconsciously respected Ningchuan. After all, that was Admiral Akainu. As a Navy of the headquarters, who doesn't know how powerful Admiral Akainu is? And Ningchuan, a little kid, can actually do this. It's really surprising. It would be even better if I could get Ningchuan's guidance. I also want to be as strong as Ningchuan. Tina drove the boat while watching Ningchuan doing the strange Kunquan there. What kind of boxing is Ningchuan practicing? It looks so strange. Tina stared at Ningchuan's Kunquan for a long time. I really can't think of what's so powerful about this kind of boxing. Maybe my cultivation is not enough, so I can't see the pros and cons of this set of boxing. I must ask Ningchuan for advice when I have time. See if he can teach me this set of boxing, so that I can practice it too. As the ship sailed on the sea for a long time, the den mushi hanging on Tina's waist suddenly rang. Gurgle gurgle. Hello, this is Tina. After a while of communication, Tina excitedly shouted to Ningchuan, who was lying on the deck and enjoying the massage of the Nami sisters. Captain Ningchuan, the Navy has successfully defeated many pirates and surrounded the Clown Buggy's ship. Not long ago, according to the intelligence, the main fleet of the Navy quickly assembled and surrounded Buggy and his pirate group. During this period, Buggy relied on his great reputation for killing the celestial dragons to recruit a large number of pirates, even formed a huge fleet. Half of the Navy warships did not dare to attack alone. Clown Buggy relied on the advantages of numbers and ships to force back several naval sieges, but this time, the Navy joined forces with several major kingdoms and dispatched a large number of ships, successfully surrounded Buggy's fleet on the sea. As the fierce naval battle broke out, a large number of Buggy's men were almost wiped out under the naval offensive with absolute superiority. The elite fleet of the Navy, with its powerful firepower, quickly disintegrated the defense lines of Buggy's pirate group. In the end, only one of Buggy's main ships remained in Buggy's large fleet. The rest were either captured or sunk in the sea by artillery fire. However, when the Navy's ships were less than a few kilometers away from Buggy's main ship, but no ship dared to move forward easily. After all, according to the intelligence of professionals within the Navy, within a kilometer of Buggy's fleet, they will be attacked by the terrifying power of split. Therefore, all the Navy are wary of Buggy's power of split fruit, so, a stalemate has formed on the sea. The Navy wants to capture Buggy alive, but they dare not step forward. After listening to Tina's report to him, Ningchuan couldn't help rolling his eyes and said happily in his heart. Baki, he doesn't know anything about split. It seems that the last time I used the split ability to deal with the celestial dragon's frigates, I scared these guys a lot. Just when Ningchuan was about to laugh out loud in his heart, Tina's voice suddenly rang in Ningchuan's ears. Ningchuan, do you want to go to the front and take a look? Hearing Tina's words, Ningchuan looked at Nami and the other three. He found that their faces were full of after everyone looked expectant. Ningchuan smiled and nodded. Let's go and see what's going on. Tina's application had just been reported. The voice of approval came from the Navy command room. That's it. Under the gaze of the naval warships, Ningchuan and his boat swaggered through the giant ships. Some naval officers who were too low in rank and not qualified to join the frontline battlefield were envious, and Tina, a colonel, was able to come to the frontline battlefield because of Ningchuan. This made her very excited. You know, the people on the front line now, except for the elite soldiers who participated in the battle, the lowest rank of officers is the level of lieutenant general. How could she not be excited that she, a colonel, could enter such a battlefield. In this way, Tina accompanied Ning Chuan and the other 4 and stepped into the highest command room of the Navy. On the way, Tina was naturally very excited. Looking at the extremely excited Tina, Ningchuan reached out and patted her little hand to comfort her. Kuina was also a little excited. After all, it was her first time on such a big ship, but she was more curious. And Nami and Nokiko were full of curiosity. The 2 of them followed Ningchuan on the giant ship of the celestial dragons, and saw the most luxurious ship in the world. Therefore, when they saw the largest warship of the Navy again, they were no longer shocked at the beginning. Report to the Marshal. I have brought Captain Ningchuan here. But when she saw Zhangguo, Tina was obviously a little excited. Zhangguo nodded at her. However, when he saw Ningchuan holding Tina's little hand, he showed a look of surprise on his face. This kid, is he going to get our Navy's military flower? Zhangguo naturally knew something about Tina. After all, this is the most beautiful thorn flower in the army as rated by the Navy soldiers. But look at Tina now, where is the thorny appearance? However, Zhangguo didn't care too much about these little things. He looked at Ningchuan and Nami and the other 2 beside him. Zhangguo nodded silently in his heart, then he looked at Ningchuan and said seriously. Ningchuan, there is a mission now, I wonder if you can help. We have annihilated Buggy's fleet, but now there is only one Buggy with tyrannical strength left. His ability is very terrifying, and it seems that he can tear everything into pieces. Speaking of this, Zhangguo's face was more serious than ever. In addition, there seem to be some tyrannical guys from the New World hiding on his ship. I hope you can cooperate with the 2 generals to catch this dangerous guy alive. The only requirement of the mission is to keep Buggy alive, and everyone else can be killed. Hearing Zhangguo's words, Ning Chuan showed a look of surprise on his face, but at this moment, he was already very happy in his heart. To catch Buggy, 2 generals are not enough. If they knew Buggy's true strength, wouldn't they be so angry?